The stars looked different through the windows of the Grand Council station. Captain Sung had seen many alien stations before, but this one made him feel small. The station orbited a dead planet in neutral space, far from any solar system. It was built by species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humans even discovered fire. He stood beside Ambassador Jin in the waiting hall. She was looking at her tablet, reading the reports one more time. Her gray suit was perfect, not a wrinkle anywhere. She had been doing this job for 15 years, talking to aliens, making deals, keeping peace. Sung trusted her completely. "They're ready for us," a voice said through the translator device in his ear. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms gestured toward the massive doors. The doors opened slowly, revealing the council chamber beyond. The chamber was enormous. 47 different species sat in a circle, each on platforms designed for their unique bodies. Some breathed different air and sat behind force fields. Others were so large they could crush a human without trying. Some were so small Sung could barely see them. Jin walked forward with confidence. Sung followed 2 steps behind, his hand resting on his side where his weapon would be if they allowed weapons here. They didn't. "The humans may speak," announced the council speaker, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Jin bowed slightly. "Honored council, we come in peace. Earth wishes only to explore and settle the empty worlds beyond Sector 47. These are dead planets with no native life. We harm no one." A loud voice boomed across the chamber. "You harm the balance." The speaker was a species that looked almost human but taller, with red skin and sharp features. His name was, and he was a high commander in their empire. "The empire has claimed those sectors for 300 years. You disrespect our borders." Jin kept her voice calm. "With respect, Commander, your empire has not settled those worlds. They remain empty. Earth's population grows. We need space for our people." "Your needs are not our concern," said, his eyes cold. "The council must put these humans in their place. They are young, barely in space for 200 years, and already they think they can take what they want." Other council members began to speak. Some defended humanity, most stayed silent. The discussion went on for hours. Finally, the council speaker called for a vote. "All in favor of restricting human expansion beyond Sector 47, indicate now." Lights appeared above 31 platforms. The vote had passed. "The humans will cease all expansion beyond Sector 47 immediately," the speaker announced. "Failure to comply will result in collective sanctions and possible military intervention." Sung felt his jaw tighten. Jin simply nodded. "We will bring your decision to our government." As they left the chamber, an old alien was waiting in the corridor. He was a member of the species. His people were among the oldest in the galaxy, and they rarely spoke in council sessions anymore. His skin was like old leather, covered in patterns that told stories of countless years. "Ambassador Jin," he said softly, "may I have a moment?" "Of course, Elder." The old alien looked around to make sure they were alone. "My people have studied your species for decades. We know your history. We've read about your wars, your weapons, the things you did to each other before you left your planet." Jin's expression didn't change. "That's in our past, we've changed." "Have you?" Eyes were sad. "I don't think you've changed at all. I think you've just learned to control it. Tell me, Ambassador, what happened to the last group of humans who attacked other humans after you formed your world government?" Sung remembered the history. "The Mars Rebellion, they tried to break away. We stopped them." "In 3 days," said. "You crushed a rebellion of 50,000 armed soldiers in 3 days with minimal losses to your own forces. That was 20 years ago. I wonder what you could do now." "What are you trying to say, Elder?" Jin asked. Touched her shoulder gently. "I'm saying that vote today was a mistake, but not for the reason you think. The believe you will obey because you are weak. They see your diplomacy and think you have no teeth. They don't understand that your restraint is a choice, not a limitation. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell your leaders to accept this decision, not because the council demands it, but because war with the will force you to show the galaxy what you really are. And I fear the galaxy is not ready to see humanity without its mask of civilization. The old alien walked away, leaving them in the empty corridor. On the ship back to Earth, Sung sat with Jin in her quarters. "Do you think he's right?" he asked. She stared out the window at the passing stars. "I think he's the only one in that chamber who truly understands us. They see us as children. The council sees us as newcomers, but sees us as survivors. He knows what survivors are capable of when threatened." "So what do we tell Earth?" "The truth," she said. "We tell them the council has given us an ultimatum. We tell them they are testing us. And we let President Nutt decide what happens next." 2 weeks later, they stood in the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva. President Nutt sat behind her desk, surrounded by advisors. Admiral Dong was there too, commander of the entire Earth Defense Fleet. He was a big man with gray hair and eyes that had seen combat. "They're backing us into a corner," Dong said, slamming his hand on the table. "If we accept this, they'll just keep pushing. Next, they'll demand we abandon Sector 45, then 43. They won't stop until we're back on Earth." "And if we refuse?" asked Na. "Then we fight," Dong said simply. "Against the entire council. Against whoever stands with the. Most council species won't actually fight. They'll complain and vote, but they won't send ships." Jin spoke up. "Madam President, I recommend we accept the council's terms for now. Give it 6 months. Let me try to negotiate. If we go to war, we become the aggressors in the galaxy's eyes." Na looked tired. She had led Earth for 8 years through peace and prosperity. Now she had to choose between pride and principle. "6 months," she finally said. "Ambassador Jin, you have 6 months to find a diplomatic solution. Admiral Dong, in those 6 months you will prepare for the worst. If diplomacy fails, I want options." "Yes, ma'am," they both said. The order went out to all human colonies and ships. Expansion beyond Sector 47 was halted. Construction projects were frozen. Colony ships were recalled. On his flagship, the Horizon's Edge, Sung received new orders: patrol the border, watch for trouble, report everything. He looked at his crew, men and women who had served with him for years. They were good people, trained well, ready for anything. "Stay sharp," he told them. "Something tells me this peace won't last long." He was right. It lasted exactly 4 months. Lieutenant Wu was off duty when the alarm started screaming. She was at home in New Seoul's residential district, trying to teach her neighbors' kids how to play an old Earth card game. The children laughed as she pretended to lose for the 3rd time in a row. Then the sky turned red. The emergency sirens were so loud she couldn't hear the children screaming at first. She ran to the window and looked up. Through the atmosphere she could see the flashes. The orbital defense stations were firing. Something was attacking them. "Get to the shelter," she yelled at the kids. "Now move." She grabbed her communicator and called the police station. "This is Lieutenant Wu. What's happening?" The response was full of static. "Fleet came out of nowhere. Stations are down. Get everyone underground." The transmission cut off. Wu's training took over. She had been a police officer for 6 years, but before that, she served in the Colonial Defense Force. She knew what to do. "Everyone listen to me," she shouted into the hallway as people poured out of their apartments in panic. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they start bombing. The subway station has deep shelters. We go there now. Take nothing except children and elderly. Move." The street outside was chaos. People running everywhere, vehicles trying to escape the city, sirens blaring. Wu organized her neighbors into a group and led them toward the subway entrance 3 blocks away. That's when the first bomb hit. The building behind them exploded into flames. The shockwave threw Wu to the ground. Her ears rang. She tasted blood. But she got up and kept moving. The children were crying. The adults were praying in a dozen different languages. They reached the subway and ran down the stairs. The shelter entrance was at the bottom, a massive steel door built to survive almost anything. Hundreds of people were already inside, more pouring in every second. Wu helped get her group inside, then stood at the door directing traffic. "Keep moving, don't stop, there's room for everyone." Through the subway entrance above, she could see the sky burning. The ships were in the atmosphere now, bombing the city systematically. They were targeting everything: power plants, water facilities, communications towers. This wasn't a military strike. This was extermination. An old man stumbled on the stairs, falling hard. Wu ran up and lifted him. "I've got you, sir, almost there." "My wife," he gasped. "She's still up there, she went back for our cat." "I'll find her," Wu lied. She knew nobody up there was coming back. She got the old man into the shelter just as another bomb hit close enough to shake the ground. The lights flickered. Someone yelled to close the door. 30 more seconds, Wu shouted back. "There are still people coming." She saw a mother running with 2 small children. Behind them, a teenage boy helped his disabled father. A group of workers from the factory district. More and more people. Then she saw the soldiers. They were landing in the street above, their transport ships hovering in the smoke. They were huge, 8 feet tall, wearing armor that looked like it could survive anything. They carried weapons that glowed with energy. "Close the door," Wu screamed. "Close it now." She ran down the stairs as fast as she could. The steel door began sliding shut. She dove through the gap with inches to spare. The door sealed with a heavy thunk, followed by the sound of locks engaging. Inside the shelter, 3,000 people sat in silence, listening to the bombs falling above them. Wu found a first aid station and helped treat the wounded. She had burns on her arms and a cut on her forehead, but she ignored them. Others needed help more than she did. Hours passed. The bombing continued. They could feel each impact through the walls. Children cried. Adults tried to stay calm. The shelter had supplies for 2 weeks if they were careful. On the second day, the bombing stopped. Everyone felt a moment of hope. Maybe Earth had sent help. Maybe it was over. Then they heard the sound of metal being cut above them. They were trying to get in. Wu gathered the 10 other people in the shelter who had military training. "We have maybe an hour before they breach," she said. "We need weapons." "We're in a civilian shelter," someone said. "We don't have weapons." "Then we make them," Wu replied. "Mining equipment, tools, chemicals from the maintenance area, anything we can use." They worked fast. Pipe bombs from cleaning supplies. Makeshift spears from metal rods. One engineer figured out how to overload power cells to create small explosives. It wasn't much, but it was something. When they finally cut through, they expected to find frightened civilians ready to surrender. Instead, they found Lieutenant Wu and her improvised army waiting in the dark. The commander was named. He led a battalion of elite soldiers who had conquered 12 planets. He expected this to be easy. Walk in, round up the humans, send them to processing camps. The first squad that entered the shelter disappeared. No gunfire, no screams. They just vanished into the dark corridors. Sent a second squad, same result. "What's happening?" he demanded over the radio. A human voice answered. "You came to our home, you killed our families, now you're in our territory." Was confused. These were supposed to be civilians, police officers and factory workers and teachers. How were they fighting? He didn't understand. He didn't know that every human on New Sol had learned survival skills as children. He didn't know that they had practiced emergency drills for years. He didn't know that humans, when fighting for their children, became something else entirely. The third squad entered with better equipment and found the first trap. A pipe bomb killed 4 soldiers. The survivors retreated and ran into the second trap. Sharpened metal rods rigged to fall from the ceiling. Sent in 30 soldiers at once. They found the humans in a large chamber, standing ready to fight with nothing but crude weapons and determination. The battle was brutal. They had better armor and weapons, but the humans knew the shelter layout. They used the darkness, the narrow corridors, the ventilation shafts. They set ambushes and traps. They refused to give up. Wu fought with a metal pipe and a small explosive she kept in her pocket as a last resort. She saw friends die around her. She watched a schoolteacher take down a soldier twice her size using nothing but rage and a sharp piece of metal. She saw humans who had never fought before finding courage they didn't know they had. When it was over, half the humans were dead, but every soldier who entered that shelter died too. Not one escaped. Stood at the entrance, staring into the dark. He could hear the humans inside waiting for more. He called for reinforcements and heavy weapons. This wasn't worth it. They would just bomb the shelter from above. But the news had already spread. Across New Seoul, in 100 other shelters, the same scene played out. Humans fighting with whatever they could find. Humans refusing to surrender. Humans teaching that conquering Earth's colonies would not be easy. In orbit, commanders watched the reports come in. They had expected to take the planet in a day. Now, 3 days in, they held the surface but couldn't clear the underground. Every shelter was a fortress. Every human was a soldier. Commander, watching from his flagship, felt something he had never felt before: doubt. "Send a message to the High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have taken New Seoul, but resistance is significant." What he didn't say, what he didn't want to admit, was that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans weren't weak. They were just careful. And now that carefulness was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. Far above New Seoul, on the edge of the system, human ships began to arrive. Not to retake the planet. They were there to record everything. To document every atrocity. To send the evidence back to Earth. When President Na watched the footage, she wept, but only for a moment. Then she stood up, wiped her eyes, and gave the order that would change the galaxy. "No restrictions," she said. "Show them what humanity really is." Commander Ho stood on the bridge of the warship Dark Star, watching the fleet assemble around him. 50 ships had gathered in just 6 hours. More were coming. Every military vessel in human space was moving toward the Empire. But they weren't going to New Seoul, not yet. "All ships report ready," his second officer said. Ho nodded. "Begin the jump. Target coordinates, Industrial Cluster Sector 52. The navigation officer looked surprised. "Sir, that's 3 jumps past New Seoul. We're bypassing the colony." "Those are our orders," Ho said quietly. "The people on New Seoul are buying us time with their lives. We honor them by making it count." The fleet jumped. Space folded around them, and when reality snapped back, they were in territory. 3 planets hung in the void ahead, all covered in factories and shipyards. This was where they built their war machine. "Launch all fighters," Ho ordered. "Weapons free. Target the shipyards first, then the factories. Remember your training. No civilian structures unless they fire first." The attack began. Human ships moved differently than other species vessels. They were faster, more aggressive, willing to take risks that seemed insane. Fighter pilots dove into enemy fire, trusting their reflexes and training. Larger ships used the gravity of the planets to slingshot around, appearing where they didn't expect them. The defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they were confused. Why were humans attacking here? New Seoul was 2 days away. This made no sense. But it made perfect sense to the humans. While they expected them to rush blindly to save the colony, Earth's military did what they always did: target the enemy's ability to make war. Admiral Dong watched from Earth's command center, tracking the battle in real time. "How long until the second and third fleets are in position?" he asked. "Second fleet arrives at their target in 10 minutes. Third fleet in 20, an officer reported. Dong smiled grimly. The thought they were fighting one battle, they were actually fighting three. At the second target, Captain Mi-sun led her attack wing against a supply depot. It was a massive station that fed resources to their entire eastern fleet. Without it, thousands of ships would run out of fuel and ammunition within a week. "This is Red Leader to all units," Mi-sun said over the radio. "Remember, we're not here to trade shots. We're here to destroy that depot and leave. Fast in, hard hit, fast out. Go." Her fighter screamed toward the station, dodging defensive fire. They were good, but human pilots trained in simulators that were deliberately harder than real combat. This felt easy by comparison. She launched her missiles and pulled up hard, feeling the G-forces try to crush her. The missiles hit the depot's reactor exactly where the engineers said the weak point would be. The station began tearing itself apart from the inside. "Red Leader, good hit. All units, targets destroyed, fall back to the jump point." The Third Fleet, meanwhile, hit a communication hub. Without it, their military couldn't coordinate across sectors. Ships would be isolated, unable to call for help or receive orders. In just 1 hour, humanity struck 3 critical targets simultaneously. The Empire, which had stood strong for 3 centuries, suddenly found itself wounded in ways it didn't know were possible. Commander, still in orbit above New Seoul, received the reports with growing horror. "How is this possible? We've been tracking their fleet positions for months. How did they move so many ships without us seeing?" His intelligence officer looked pale. "Sir, I think they've been hiding their true fleet strength. The ships we were tracking were less than half their total force." Felt cold. "Contact High Command. Tell them we need reinforcements immediately." "Sir, High Command reports their reinforcements are unavailable. The humans destroyed the shipyards where they were being built." On New Seoul's surface, the soldiers received new orders: hold what they had and wait for support. But support wasn't coming, not quickly enough. In the underground shelters, Lieutenant Wu and the other survivors heard the change in the sounds above. Less bombing, fewer patrols. Something was happening. "They're scared," said an old soldier who had fought in humanity's last civil war. "You can always tell when an enemy starts to lose confidence. They get cautious." "Good," Wu said. "Let them be scared, they should be." Back in space, Commander Ho regrouped his fleet. They had taken damage, lost a few ships, but the mission was successful. Now came the harder part. "Set course for New Seoul," he ordered. "It's time to take back our colony." They expected a direct assault. Instead, the human fleet jumped in at the edge of the system and began something they had never seen before. They started broadcasting. "Attention forces on New Seoul," a voice said in perfect language. "You are now trapped. Your supply lines are cut. Your reinforcements are not coming. Your commanders have abandoned you. You have 2 choices: surrender and be treated according to galactic law, or stay and die when your food and ammunition run out." It was psychological warfare, and it was effective. The soldiers on the ground heard it. So did their commanders. Doubt began to spread. Admiral Dong watched the strategy unfold and approved. This was total war, but fought with precision. Hurt the enemy's ability to fight, destroy their logistics, break their morale, and only then, when they're weak and confused, do you move in for the final blow. But wasn't ready to surrender. He was a proud warrior from a proud species. He gathered his remaining ships and prepared for a battle. "All vessels, form up. We're going to break through the human blockade and escape to friendly space." His fleet moved forward. 23 heavy warships, the remains of what had been a mighty battle group. Ho saw them coming. "Well, if they want to fight, we'll oblige them. All ships, defensive formation delta. Let them come to us." The humans waited. When the fleets met, It wasn't the glorious battle expected. The humans used tactics pulled from Earth's naval history, centuries of warfare refined and adapted for space. They divided his fleet, isolated his ships, and destroyed them one by one. His flagship was hit by 3 missiles simultaneously. His shields failed. His engines died. He sat in his command chair as human ships surrounded him, knowing he had lost. Flagship, this is Commander Ho of the Earth Coalition. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we will destroy you. Looked at his crew. They were young soldiers who had believed in the Empire's strength. Now they just looked tired and afraid. Power down weapons, he ordered quietly. It's over. When human Marines boarded the flagship, they found the crew waiting peacefully. Captain Mi-sun, leading the boarding party, took surrender personally. "Why did you attack New Seoul?" she asked him. Looked at her with genuine confusion. "Because you were weak. Everyone said humans were soft, afraid of real war. We thought you would surrender quickly." Mi-sun laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You thought wrong. We're not soft. We're just careful. There's a difference. We tried diplomacy because we remember what war costs, but you attacked our children. Did you really think we would just accept that?" "We didn't know," said. "We didn't know what you were capable of." "Now you do," Mi-sun said, "and so does the rest of the galaxy." 3 days later, with the fleet defeated and New Seoul liberated, Ambassador Jin returned to the Grand Council station. This time, she wasn't there to listen. She was there to talk. Captain Sung walked beside her again, but this time his uniform was battle-worn. He had fought in the campaign, seen friends die, watched cities burn. He was tired, but his eyes were hard. The council chamber was silent when they entered. Every species there had seen the battle reports. They knew what had happened. Jin didn't bow this time. She walked to the center of the chamber and spoke clearly. The Empire attacked a peaceful human colony. They killed millions of civilians. The council did nothing, so we did something. We showed and everyone watching that humanity will not accept aggression against our people. "You started a war," one council member accused. "No," Jin said coldly. "They started it when they bombed New Seoul. We're just finishing it, and we'll keep finishing it until the Empire surrenders unconditionally." "The council demands you cease your offensive immediately," the speaker said. Sung stepped forward. "The council demanded we stop our expansion. We did. The council failed to stop them from attacking us. You failed. We won't fail to protect our people." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported humanity, others feared them, but everyone understood that something had changed. Humanity was no longer asking for permission. They were taking what they needed to survive, and heaven help anyone who tried to stop them. The High Command met in their capital city on the Ove. The room was filled with generals and admirals, all wearing the deep red uniforms of their military elite. They looked at reports and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. Supreme Commander stood at the head of the table. He was old, covered in scars from 100 battles. He had led to victory after victory for 30 years. Now he faced the first real defeat of his career. "The humans have taken back New Seoul," he said. "They've destroyed 3 of our major supply centers. They've cut off communication to 12 sectors. Our shipyards are damaged and will take months to repair. In 2 weeks, they have done more damage than we've suffered in the last century." "They're just one species," someone objected. "We are the Empire. We control 40 systems. We have the Crimson Fleet." Nodded slowly. "Yes, the Crimson Fleet, our pride, our elite warriors, ships that have never been defeated." He paused. "We send them to Earth. We strike at there, force them to recall their forces to defend it. Then we can regroup and counterattack." The room agreed quickly. The plan made sense. The humans were spread out across the galaxy now, attacking positions. Their home system would be defended, but not as heavily as their forward positions. The Crimson Fleet could hit Earth, force a surrender, and end this war before it got worse. What they didn't know was that Doctor, Earth's chief military strategist, had been planning for exactly this move for 3 years. Doctor sat in a secure bunker deep beneath Geneva, watching a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. She was a small woman with gray hair and glasses, looking more like a teacher than a military genius. But her mind worked differently than most people. She saw patterns, predicted moves, planned 20 steps ahead. "They'll send the Crimson Fleet to Earth," she said to Admiral Dong, who stood beside her. "They think we're overextended. They think our home is vulnerable." "Is it?" Dong asked. Smiled. "Only if they want it to be. We've been turning the Sol system into a fortress for years. Every asteroid has been equipped with weapons. Every moon has defense platforms. The entire asteroid belt is one giant minefield, and we've kept it secret." "What about the fleet?" "Already being recalled. They'll arrive 3 days before the Crimson Fleet does. We'll be ready." She was right. The Crimson Fleet, 200 of their best ships, began the journey to Earth. It would take them 10 days to get there. They traveled in formation, proud and confident. Human scouts tracked them every step of the way. On Earth, people prepared. Evacuation of civilians to underground shelters. Military personnel reported to their stations. The defense fleet, recalled from across human space, began arriving in the Sol system. Captain Sung brought the Horizon's Edge home, joining hundreds of other ships taking defensive positions. He looked at Earth from his bridge, the blue and green planet where humanity was born. He had been in space for 15 years but never forgot what home looked like. "All crew to battle stations," he ordered. "This is not a drill. The Crimson Fleet will be here in 72 hours. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten Earth." President Nu gave a speech that was broadcast across the planet and to every human colony. She looked tired but determined. "My fellow humans," she said, "they are coming to our home. They think they can force us to surrender by threatening Earth. They're wrong. We were born on this planet. We evolved here. We fought wars here that nearly destroyed us, and we survived. This is our home, and no one, no matter how powerful they think they are, will take it from us." The people of Earth watched and believed. They had seen what happened on New Sol. They had watched their military defeat thee in battle after battle. They trusted their leaders and their soldiers. When the Crimson Fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they paused. The system looked different than their intelligence had shown. There were too many ships, too many structures, too much activity. Supreme Commander, leading the fleet personally from his flagship Eternal Conquest, studied the scans. "Something's wrong," he said to his officers. "Where did all these defenses come from?" "Unknown, sir. The humans must have been building them in secret." Made a decision. They had come too far to turn back now. All ships advance, stay in formation, focus fire on their defensive platforms first. The Crimson Fleet moved forward. As they crossed into the inner system, the trap began to close. Asteroids that looked natural suddenly powered up, revealing weapon systems. Defense platforms emerged from behind moons. Human ships that had been hiding in the shadow of planets moved into attack positions. And then the Battle of Sol began. Admiral Dong commanded from Earth's orbital fortress, a massive station that controlled the entire defensive network. "All units, engage at will. Execute Plan Omega." The plan was simple but devastating. Use the terrain. The Crimson Fleet was used to fighting in open space where formations mattered, but the Sol system was humanity's home. Every rock, every moon, every planet was positioned perfectly. The humans used gravity wells to slingshot missiles. They used the sun's radiation to hide ship movements. They turned the entire system into a weapon. Commander Ho led a fighter wing that harassed the flanks. They would dart in, fire, and retreat before the enemy could respond. It was like being bitten by 1,000 small insects, each bite not fatal but together overwhelming. They tried to push through to Earth, but they couldn't maintain formation. Human tactics split them up, isolated groups of ships, and destroyed them piece by piece. Captain Mi-sun led a boarding team onto a cruiser that had been disabled. They fought through the ship, capturing it intact. Its intelligence computers would tell Earth everything about military secrets. The battle lasted 6 hours. It felt longer. Watched his fleet being destroyed around him. He had lost 100 ships. His formations were shattered. His warriors, who had never known defeat, were dying by the thousands. "Sir, we need to retreat," his second officer urged. "No," said stubbornly, we do not retreat." But as more ships exploded around him, as human forces surrounded his position, he finally understood. This wasn't a battle, it was an execution. "All ships fall back," he ordered. "Emergency jump to rally point 7. Only 60 ships escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. On Earth, people watched the battle from underground shelters. When it was over, when the fleet ran away, they emerged into the light and cheered. They had defended their home. But Captain Sung didn't celebrate. He stood on his bridge, looking at the debris field where the battle had been fought. Thousands of soldiers were dead. Human soldiers, too. War always had a cost. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," his communications officer said. "It's from the flagship." "Put it through." Supreme Commander appeared on the screen. He looked old and defeated. "I wish to speak with your president. The Empire wishes to discuss terms of surrender." Sung felt no triumph, only relief. "I'll forward your request to Earth. Stand by." President Nu took the call personally. Bowed his head in the traditional gesture of respect to a superior warrior. "President Nu, I miscalculated. I believed humans were weak. I was wrong. On behalf of the Empire, I formally request a ceasefire and surrender." Nu looked at him for a long moment. "Supreme Commander, you attacked our colony. You killed millions of our people. You came to our home planning to do the same. Why should we accept your surrender instead of destroying your empire completely?" Had no good answer. "Because we were fools, and fools should be allowed to learn from their mistakes. We will never threaten humanity again. This I swear on the honor of my ancestors." Nu nodded slowly. "Doctor, what are your thoughts?" The strategist appeared on a split screen. "Accept the surrender, Madam President. We've won. Making them suffer more serves no purpose except revenge. And revenge isn't strategy." "Very well," Nu said. "Supreme Commander, the Earth Coalition accepts your surrender. Your fleet will power down weapons and await escort to designated zones. Your empire will pay reparations for the damage to New Seoul. Your military will be reduced to defensive forces only, and you will sign a treaty that ensures this never happens again." "Agreed," said quietly, "all of it." The war ended 72 hours after the Battle of Seoul. The galaxy watched in shock as the mighty empire, which had dominated for centuries, surrendered to the humans they had called weak. And in the Grand Council chamber, the other species began to realize something terrifying. Humanity had been holding back all along. They had chosen peace not because they were weak, but because they understood the true cost of war. Now that they had been forced to fight, nothing would ever be the same. The Grand Council chamber looked the same as it always had, but everything felt different. Ambassador Jin walked through those massive doors again, 3 months after the war had ended. This time, she wasn't alone. Admiral Dong walked on her right, wearing his full military uniform with medals from the war. Colonel, who had led ground forces in the liberation of 6 colonies, walked on her left. Behind them came Doctor, the strategist who had planned humanity's victory. And beside her was Captain Sung, who had fought in every major battle of the war. They were not there to ask for anything. They were there to inform the Council of new realities. The 47 species watched them approach, some with fear, some with respect, some with barely hidden anger. Elder the Old, who had warned Jin months ago, looked sad. His ancient eyes met hers and she saw regret there. He had known this would happen. He had tried to prevent it. Now he would have to live with the consequences. The council speaker, the floating being of light, addressed them. The humans have requested this session. We grant you the floor to speak. Jin stepped forward. Her voice was clear and strong. Honored Council, 3 months ago the Empire attacked New Seoul without provocation. They killed 4 million civilians, including children. We asked the Council for help. The Council did nothing. Murmurs went through the chamber. Some Council members looked uncomfortable. So we helped ourselves, Jin continued. We defeated the military. We destroyed their ability to make war. We forced their surrender. And we did it in 3 weeks. Now we're here to discuss what happens next. The Council has concerns, the speaker said carefully. Your military displayed capabilities far beyond what you had reported. You possess weapons and ships we did not know existed. This is troubling. Admiral Dong spoke up. With respect, we never lied about our capabilities. We simply didn't share everything. Just like every other species in this chamber keeps secrets. But your secrets allow you to dominate this region of space, another council member objected. You have upset the balance of power. They upset the balance when they attacked us, Colonel said coldly. We simply restored it, violently. The council speaker tried to calm things down. The council proposes several resolutions. First, humanity must reduce its military to pre-war levels. Second, you must share your military technology with the Council. Third, you must accept oversight of your expansion activities. Silence fell over the chamber. Every eye was on the human delegation. Jin smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. No. Excuse me, the speaker said, shocked. No to all 3 proposals, Jin repeated. We will not reduce our military, not when species like the exist. We will not share our technology. You'll use it against us someday. And we will absolutely not accept oversight from a council that failed to protect us when we needed it. The chamber erupted, species shouting in dozens of languages, accusations flying, threats being made. Admiral Dong waited for the noise to die down, then spoke in a voice that carried across the entire chamber. Let me make something very clear. Humanity does not want to conquer anyone. We don't want an empire. We just want to live in peace and raise our children safely. But we will never again trust others to protect us. From now on, we protect ourselves. Doctor stepped forward, adjusting her glasses. She looked like someone's grandmother, but when she spoke, every species listened. The Council has a choice. You can try to limit humanity through sanctions and threats. That won't work. We're too strong now and you know it. Or you can work with us to build a better system. One where aggression is punished quickly. One where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. And if we choose to oppose you, one council member asked. Then you'll lose, Dong said simply. We don't want that, neither do you, so let's be intelligent about this. Elder finally rose to speak. His voice was old and tired. I warned you, he said to the council. I told you what would happen if you pushed humanity to war. I told you they were dangerous, not because they're evil, but because they're survivors, and survivors will do whatever it takes to protect their own. He turned to look at Jin. You've changed the galaxy, Ambassador. The old order where species like the could bully newcomers is over. Now there's a new power, and that power is humanity. The question is, what will you do with it? Jin took a deep breath. We propose a new treaty, the Treaty of Earth. Any species that attacks civilians will face consequences from the entire council. Not economic sanctions, not strongly worded letters, real military response. And humanity will lead that response. You want to be the council's military arm? The speaker asked. No, Jin said. We want to be the guarantee that no one else suffers what happened on New Seoul. You make the laws. We enforce them. Together, we build a galaxy where expansion is possible but aggression is punished. The debate went on for hours. Some species supported the idea, others hated it, but everyone understood one thing: humanity was offering them a choice: work together or watch as humanity did things their own way. In the end, 32 species voted for the Treaty of Earth. 15 voted against. The treaty passed. Outside the council chamber, Captain Sung stood with Jin, looking out at the stars through the massive windows. "Do you think this will work?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "But it's better than the alternative. They taught us that sitting back and hoping for peace doesn't work. Sometimes you have to be ready to fight for it." "We lost a lot of good people," Sung said quietly. "New Seoul, the fleet battles, all those soldiers who died." "I know," Jin said. "I think about them every day. But they didn't die for nothing. They died protecting others. And now, because of them, maybe other colonies won't have to go through what New Seoul did." Back on Earth in the ruins of New Seoul, Lieutenant Wu supervised the reconstruction. She was a colonel now, given command of the colony's military forces. The city was being rebuilt, better than before. The shelters where she had fought were being turned into a memorial. She stood at the entrance of the shelter that had held 3,000 people. A plaque was being installed, listing the names of everyone who had died defending it. Her friends were on that list. People she had laughed with, worked with, protected. A group of children approached her. They were survivors, kids who had hidden in that shelter during the attack. One of them, a little girl maybe 7 years old, tugged on Wu's uniform. "Colonel, is it true you fought the aliens here?" Wu knelt down to the girl's level. "Yes, sweetheart, me and a lot of other brave people." "Were you scared?" "I was terrified," Wu admitted. "But I fought anyway, because you and all the other children needed someone to protect you." "Will they come back?" the girl asked, fear in her eyes. Wu put her hand on the girl's shoulder. "No, they won't. We made sure of that. And even if they tried, we're ready now. We'll always be ready to protect you." The girl smiled and ran back to her friends. Wu watched them play, their laughter echoing through the construction site. That's what they had fought for. That laughter, that innocence, that future. In Geneva, President Nu met with her cabinet. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. Reparations from the were arriving, helping rebuild New Seoul and compensate the victims' families. New trade agreements were being signed with species that respected humanity's strength. The economy was booming. But Nu looked tired. War, even a short one, took its toll. "Madam President," an advisor said, "the public approval numbers are in. You're at 92%. People are calling this your finest moment." Nu shook her head. 4 million people died on New Seoul, thousands more in the fighting. That's not a victory, that's a tragedy. We survived. "But we did survive," the advisor pressed, "and now we're stronger than ever." "Are we?" Nu asked. "Or have we just learned that strength invites conflict? They attacked because they thought we were weak. What happens when someone decides to test if we're as strong as we claim?" No one had a good answer. The Supreme Commander sat in a simple room. He had been stripped of his command and his titles. The new government was civilian, focused on peace and rebuilding. They wanted nothing to do with the military leaders who had led them to disaster. A human diplomat came to visit him. It was Ambassador Jin, traveling to oversee the implementation of the treaty. "Why did you come?" asked. "To see the defeated enemy." "No," Jin said. "To understand, why did you attack New Seoul, really?" Was quiet for a long time. "Because we were afraid," he finally said. "Your species was growing so fast, expanding so quickly. We saw you as a threat. We thought if we struck first, made you afraid, you would stop. We didn't realize that making you afraid was the worst thing we could do." "You're right about that," Jin said. "Humans are most dangerous when we're scared, because we don't run, we fight." "I understand that now," said. "I cost my people everything because I didn't understand your species. I saw your diplomacy and thought it was weakness. I didn't realize it was wisdom." Jin stood to leave. Your people will recover. The treaty is harsh but fair. In 20 years, maybe less, they will be prosperous again. Just don't make the same mistake twice. We won't, promised. We've learned our lesson. 6 months after the war, the galaxy had settled into a new normal. Human colonies continued to expand, but now other species asked permission first. Trade flourished. Peace held. In the council chamber, a new plaque was installed near the entrance. It was written in every language known to the galaxy. In memory of the 4 million souls lost on New Sol. They died because aggression went unpunished. They will be remembered so that such tragedy never happens again. Let all who enter here know, peace is precious, but freedom is not free. Those who threaten the innocent will face consequences. Captain Sung returned to his ship, the Horizon's Edge, ready for patrol duty again. As he sat in his command chair, looking at the stars ahead, his communications officer spoke up. Captain, we're receiving a distress call. A civilian transport is being harassed by pirates near the border. Sung smiled grimly. Set course, full speed. Let's remind those pirates why it's a bad idea to target human ships. Aye, Captain. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing to protect the innocent. Because that's what humanity did now. They protected. They defended. They ensured that what happened on New Sol would never happen again. The warning had been given, the had ignored it, and humanity had delivered the consequences. Now the whole galaxy knew. Approach with peace, and humanity would be the best friend you ever had. But threaten their people, their children, their future, and you would learn why Earth's most dangerous weapon was never their ships or their bombs. It was their absolute refusal to surrender, their capacity to endure, and their promise to remember every wrong done to them until justice was served. The Council had given humanity a warning to stop expanding. Humanity had given them a warning about attacking them. In the end, only one warning mattered. And the galaxy would never forget it.